Okay, you're an astrophotographer and you're looking for a large sensor cooled astrophotography camera to pair with some refracting telescope, etc., because you want a nice astrophotography rig with a cooled camera and a large field of view, even if you're having a somewhat long focal length. And the way to accomplish that is with a large sensor. The problem is that large sensor cameras, typically like APS-C size these days, they always use the IMX571 sensor from Sony, which is a great sensor, very proven, battle ready, etc. And it's APS-C size, so it's really large, except that like the lowest price camera you can get is around $1,400 US, and that's from TopeTech. If you get from other companies like ZW or like the more mainstream type of companies, the price gets higher. But what if you're trying to be more on a budget? What can you do about it? Well, you can consider the budget brand that I've reviewed quite a lot of equipment for, and that's SV Boni, and with their version of a cooled astrophotography camera with the IMX571 sensor. So I'm a bit late on this one because, I've reviewed multiple cameras with the 571 sensor. They all work well, they're all great, it all works out. So what's the point of another one? The point of this one really is the price. On sale right now, I think it's around $1,200 US, and I might even have an additional coupon on top of that to get it even lower. So I'll put the link down in the description. So if you're saving like $200 next to the next lowest price option, hey, it might actually make sense, right? So let's have a look at it. Because I was a bit surprised, when I opened the box. I like to break things. Well, first, there's a paper manual, which is very nice. I like to see paper manuals. It has the camera specs, the quantum efficiency. It's the typical IMX571 quantum efficiency. If you're not, by the way, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, the IMX571 is the APS-C size format sensor, the reference in astrophotography. It has pixels of 3.76 microns, which is actually a very good sweet spot in terms of not being too small so that you're not like oversampling your picture when you're using it with slightly longer focal lengths. It's not too little so that you're not undersampled too much on small refractors. While being a large sensor, it works well with a large variety of telescopes. There's a word for that in Japanese, it's bunan. I don't know how I would say it in English, but it's kind of like, it works well in pretty much any scenario. It's probably not the best at something, but it's really good overall. These days, I'm a big fan of the IMX585 sensor, which has smaller pixels and higher sensitivity in H-alpha, for instance. But the 585 is a small sensor. This is a large sensor. So I'm opening the box. We have the manual, quantum efficiency, which I believe goes above 80%, which is good. And what's interesting as well is I get curves. Is that we get the read noise and gain curves here that are for the ATR3 CMOS 2600 kPa, which is a TopeTech camera actually. Interesting. Yeah, so I'll get back to that. So let's get the camera out. Here it is. It's a beauty. It looks very similar to actually TopeTech cameras, but it's in a nice silver gray. So if you like silver gray to go with your, I don't know, red cat, no, the space cat, I don't know, if you like dark theme type of rigs, this might be the one for you. For reference, this is what like a TopeTech blue camera looks like in comparison. And at the very front, we have a nice rectangular APS-C size sensor. There's no IR cut window on that. This is anti-reflection only. And you have the screw holes on the side here that will work with a variety of filter wheels, filter drawers, if you want to screw them in directly. Otherwise, the threads in the middle are M42, the stem stuff. If we look at the other side of the camera, we have a power input. The camera will not work without 12 volt 3 amps input. And then we have a USB-C port at the bottom. So this is a USB-C powered camera. It supports USB 3.0 speeds. It has 512 megs of buffer or RAM or whatever you want to call it inside the camera. Cache, I think is the right word. So it's a very standard, very nice little camera. The width of the camera, or the radius, the diameter of the camera is 80 millimeters. And you've noticed what it does not have is a USB hub. So if I look at a comparable camera from TopeTech, that one has a powered USB hub for USB 2.0, which is nice for connecting things like filter wheels. Not the case with the SV Boni camera, and this is the sacrifice made to lower the cost on such a camera. And so SV Boni goes with the assumption that, okay, instead of paying $200, $300 more to have a USB hub at the back, you can get this one for cheap, and then you pair it with something like the SV241, which is like the a quick, easy like USB hub / DC output hub that costs like $70. And then you have the same capabilities, but you save a lot of money. It might not be as elegant as having the USB hub at the back, but it's more cost effective. So that's where I think SV Boni's strategy comes in. Right, so we have the camera, and the camera comes with all sorts of accessories. We have the adapters to go to 55mm of back focus, and those, by the way, are M42 on the camera side and M48 on the telescope side. But you have a ring like that, an adapter ring to M42 threads. So if you have an SV Boni SV535 tiny lens, for instance, which has M42 threads at the back, just use that as the adapter, it's included. You also have a metal cap if you want to close the camera with some adapters on, and you have a desiccant tube, which looks a bit like the ones from QHY, which is weird because I would assume that the desiccant tube would be connected to this thing here that says like, do not open. So I guess it would be like only in case of emergency. That's pretty nice. I don't think the TopeTech cameras come with that kind of stuff. It also came with a micro cleaning cloth. Never ever use it on your camera sensor. I mean, I wouldn't recommend to do so. And also a USB-C with a USB-A port for the computer at USB 3 speeds for connecting the camera to your computer. Talking about that, let's have a look at what this looks like. So how do we connect this to the computer? Just via USB-C together with a 12-volt input, and you can install drivers from the SV Boni website. So first, to use the camera on your PC. So it's going to work with stuff like the Stella Vita by TopeTech. It's going to work with stuff like the StellarMate. It's going to work with stuff like Nina under Windows. It will not work with the ZW-SI Air because for astrophotography cameras, ZW only supports their own cameras. But yeah, if you're on a Windows PC, you will go to the SV Boni website under like support. You have installers and downloads, and that's where you can download the SC571CC camera software setups. By the way, I'll have all of the links down in the description, as along with any coupon I was able to obtain, so that you can purchase the camera if you're interested. So you have the SV Boni setup, which is the native SV Boni app to connect to the camera if you want to do that. Most people will want to use the SV Boni ASCOM setup, which installs the ASCOM drivers, as well as puts native drivers inside Nina or SharpCap or that kind of stuff. If you have this software installed, for me, I'm using Nina here, and you have a direct show setup as well, which you typically don't need unless you want to use the camera with some non-astrophotography software or some astrophotography software that doesn't really support ASCOM. So I would usually recommend this one, the ASCOM setup. By the way, the SV app, if you want to use the native SV Boni app, this is what it looks like, and you just connect to the camera directly. There it is. By the way, quick comparison to the TopeTech native app called TopeSky. So this is TopeSky here, and this is SV Boni here. Yeah, I think it might be that the camera might be actually built by TopeTech based on SV Boni specifications, which is fine. TopeTech is a good brand, so I would see it as an advantage. I don't know for sure, but there are some indicators. Anyway, I view that as a positive. So let's go to Nina itself. If I'm in Nina, the camera will actually appear under SV Boni as native, under Rising Cam as native. Rising Cam is a rebrand of TopeTech, and under TopeTech as native, which adds to the potential that this might be a TopeTech built camera, but it was built as per the SV Boni specifications, which is pretty common. Altair cameras in the UK are like that as well, built by TopeTech on the specifications of Altair. So it's really not a bad thing at all. So if I go to the SVBony side of things, I can connect to SVBony, and there we have the typical options that I see with such cameras. We have the default gain, which I would recommend set at 100 for deep skies, together with high conversion gain in pretty much all cases. The default offset, which I would recommend at 400 typically. And then some stuff that is interesting as well is the dew heater strength, which I would always recommend to set to 1 or 2. This is just like TaupeTech dew heater strength, which goes from 1 to 4. So this camera has inherited that. 4 is extremely strong. 1 or 2 is typically good enough for pretty much any weather. So yeah, set it to 1 or 2. By default for me it was 4. So you probably want to lower that, and you can turn the fan on or off. You can turn on or off the dew heater, and you can turn the cooling on or off. On the topic of cooling, in a room that was at 27 degrees Celsius, I was able to get down with a bit of time and with the cooler at basically 100% power to minus 13 degrees, which is a full 40 degrees below room temperature, which is good. And it's actually better than the specs of the camera, which said that it can go all the way down to 35 degrees below ambient. So in practice, it seems to be doing a bit better than that. I did those tests with the dew heater power set to 1. In my experience, setting the dew heater power to 4, for instance, can make, over the long term, the cooling less effective, simply because 4 is really heating up the camera all over the place. In terms of dark frames and bias frames, so here on the left-hand side, I have high conversion gain, a dark frame of 300 seconds long, and exactly as advertised. And as expected, it's the same as any other 571 sensor-based camera. We don't have amp glow. Underneath, still in high conversion mode, I have sample bias frames. They all look very nice, very easy to deal with. The 571 is a battle-hardened sensor. It is very reliable. There's a reason why every brand and their mother uses that sensor in one of their cameras. It's just very good, very trustworthy, very stable. And this camera is no exception. On the right-hand side, we have the same thing, the dark 300 second long dark frame for low conversion gain, and the bias frame as well here at the bottom. No issues whatsoever on that front. Now, if I go to the SVBony website and I go to the page specific to the SC571CC camera, we have a summer sale going on right now. So I guess it's cheaper right now. It's very interesting because the camera comes with a full kit as well that's available. If you want to have the camera, a filter drawer, an off-axis guider, and the power delivery box like the SV241 all together, you can still get it for less than the price of the camera if it comes from TaupeTech, for instance. So it is overall, I think, a pretty good deal as a camera. One thing to note is, compared to some other 571 cameras, the ring there is not a tilt adjuster, so this is going to be without any tilt adjuster integrated. Note that I believe that both SVBony and TaupeTech sell a tilt adjuster for cameras, so you could use one of those to add that functionality to SVBony. But then I think a lot of telescopes have tilt adjusters, and I personally hate dealing with tilt adjusters, so it's really up to you what you want to do. But overall, I think it is very good bang for the buck, honestly. And then we go to the camera specs themselves, and what is interesting to me is this camera performance in terms of read noise, gain, full well, dynamic range, etc. This is only for high conversion gain mode. They haven't published it for low conversion gain mode, and it's actually different from the charts that are in the manual of the camera. So I think this is kind of like what SVBony has ended up getting with their custom version of their custom built, let's say, camera. Here I tried to validate that in SharpCap by doing the sensor analysis in SharpCap, and for that I actually had to use version 4.2 beta of SharpCap. Otherwise I would get like the camera connected as a TaupeTech camera, and I wanted to make sure I was using an SVBony driver. So that's what I did. I used SharpCap for that. And this is the result. So the reason, basically what you see in red is the read noise, and you have a big jump in read noise as if you had like a switch that is based on gain as to when you have a switch from low conversion gain to high conversion gain. This is actually specific to the drivers that are in SharpCap itself. And I've heard from TaupeTech actually that SharpCap doesn't really like having that toggle between LGC and HCG. So that's why it's like that. But what I've noticed is that at least for the high conversion gain bit, which is this section here at the bottom of the chart, if we start basically when it starts at gain 0.25 electron per ADU with read noise 1.48 electrons, and then we keep going through the chart from that point onwards, it actually matches very closely this graph here, the high conversion gain mode. So it tells me that indeed from SharpCap I was able to confirm, at least for high conversion gain, something very similar to the specs that I have here. So it really matches what they say here. And don't be worried about the jump in SharpCap. This is a proper switch that's available in any of the software you use to go from low conversion gain to high conversion gain without needing to rely on changing the gain of the camera and having the camera basically decide when it wants to jump between those two modes, which is something like that ZW does, for instance. It's not the case for this SVBony SC571CC camera, which just follows your orders. But that being said, if you look actually at the equivalent camera from ZW and you look at the read noise curves, actually if you look at this graph that I obtained from the moment it switches to high conversion gain, and you compare it to this graph from ZW, from the moment it switches to high conversion gain, we actually have pretty much the same read noise and same gain as ZW. So you're basically getting the same thing as in high conversion gain as the ZW version. Although again, because the SharpCap driver seems to be a bit different than the driver that is in Nina, it's not a guarantee that you get exactly the same thing. So that's a bit of an interesting part. I wish that we had access in the SharpCap software to the same drivers that we have in Nina. But I talked about how you can use this camera, buy it with a kit that has like an off-axis guider, a filter wheel, and then pair it with something like this, like an SVBony SV545, which I've reviewed on the channel, and it's very competent even on full frame, so it works very well for APS-C as well. Yeah, this thing is $500. Then you get, like, currently on sale for what, $13.50 roughly, the full set with the APS-C cooled camera, the off-axis guider, and I already have it connected to a filter drawer on the other side using screws that came with the off-axis guider, which, by the way, I've been using quite a lot. It has a massive prism, and it's actually very pleasant to use. I actually recommend this off-axis guider a lot. But yeah, you can get a full imaging train that is cooled for less than $200 US, let's say $1,850, right? At the current sale price, maybe even a bit less if I manage to get a coupon. And then on top of that, if you added a cheap mount from AliExpress, like the one I've shown on the channel for $500 US, and it's a train wave gear mount, you're still at around $2,400 US for a full astrophotography cooled rig. It's not as good as something like an S30 Pro in terms of price, but it's cooled and it's a full-fledged setup, right? So that's where I think the ability to go really budget is what makes SVBony kind of like apart from the rest. It's good to have that, although, as I already mentioned, there are obviously limitations in terms of like the lack of USB ports at the back, for instance. I have the camera. I would connect it to my filter drawer here, SVBony filter drawer, SVBony off-axis guider. And this is one thing, by the way, I don't really like about the filter drawer. It doesn't have any like threaded holes on the other side, so to connect it to the camera, the only way is via just the main M42 threads, which means I can't really control the angle that my sensor will end up at. And so now that I've connected it to the this filter drawer, I need to actually adjust my off-axis guider to be in the right direction. It should be basically on the short side of the sensor. So I'll do that right now. I need to remove this front plate, then disconnect from the filter drawer, rotate things around a bit, and then put it back on. And so here it is with the off-axis guider. It's slightly crooked, and that's simply because I cannot really choose the perfect angle with the way that the filter drawer is slotted into the camera. So in that case, a filter drawer from Toptech might be a better idea, but it's really up to you guys. Also, I couldn't really choose the angle of the filter drawer, which is actually very nice to use and magnetize as well. And the off-axis guider, beautiful. So we have a pretty cool little SVBony imaging train, and then I can put that onto the main telescope. And so here we have the full imaging train with the SC571CC color APS-C size IMX571 camera. We have the SVBony filter drawer here. We have the SVBony off-axis guider, and then we have the SVBony SV545 telescope. So that's this whole thing there. It's a high quality overall cooled astrophotography rig. While this is what I'm going to be using for my tests of this camera once the typhoons go away and the weather finally clears, right? For now, this is first impressions, and first impressions is that it's basically a standard 571 sensor camera with pretty much the same capabilities as the other 571 cameras. But it has the switch between low conversion gain and high conversion gain, just like Toptech. It's slightly less fat than, let's say, ZW camera equivalents at 80mm diameter, which is good for Hyperstar. The cooling works fine and is competent. It has a good dew heater within the camera. And the biggest drawback is the lack of a USB hub at the back of the camera. But otherwise, it looks to be a perfectly capable 571 camera. I'll make an update once I can finally test this under the stars, but for now, I wanted to share this with you. Okay, and now is the time to have a look at the results of the camera with this imaging train here. So the SV545, the SVBony off-axis guider. I cannot say enough good things about this thing. It's really, really good, very surprisingly good actually. I'm kind of surprised. The filter drawer that lacks the ability to screw it into the camera, which is a bit too bad. And the camera itself with a Toptech Stella Vida, a Toptech guide camera, and a Toptech auto focuser. So that's the imaging train. The result is here on the screen. So this is without any processing, just the stacking on M13. Typical of what you'd expect from a 571 sensor. And by the way, while we're at it, the SV455 actually performs pretty well in the corners, as I showed in the video review, right? We have pretty decent star shapes throughout the field of view, so this is pretty nice. This is only, 3 hours of data from Tokyo, so yeah, the background is not going to be great, and yeah, in terms of processing, it's simple stuff. First, a background subtraction, then photometric or spectrophotometric color calibration, followed by some blur exterminator, nice stars, followed by some noise exterminator with the auto stretch now going into hyperdrive because there's less noise in the image. And then I'm going for some rounds of generalized hyperbolic stretch to do my stretching. And after that, I get basically my final image. We have a very nice little sensor there, some details in the galaxy. Is that another galaxy? I didn't know about this one. But anyway, we have, this is the 571 sensor, right? There's nothing to be surprised about. It performs exactly as I would expect. It works, right? And it's much cheaper than other offerings at the sacrifice of the USB hub, basically. And another image that I took, this is on M51. It's only 30 minutes of data from Tokyo, so it's not going to be great, but we still see the galaxy at the center. I'll zoom in a little bit. There it is, and we go through the exact same process, cropping the image a bit, removing the background, running photometric color or spectrophotometric color calibration, some blur exterminator, some noise exterminator, and then some generalized hyperbolic stretching, cropping the corners because, I had some issues in my corners. And there we go, we have 30 minutes on M51 from Tokyo with this sensor, so we have a massive field of view on this small refractor, exactly as expected. So yeah, and by the way, if I get SVBony's permission to do that, because I think I need to actually return this in theory afterwards, but I'll try to see if I can send it to a remote hosting provider, like where you can host your equipment, your rig in Australia. So I have access to nice southern skies from Australia. Let me know if that's a good idea, because I think that could be the perfect setup to sacrifice to send to another planet. But anyway, long story short, yeah, the image is exactly what I was expecting. With that, let's go back to Quiff from the past. So what do you think of that? Let me know down in the comments. If you like the video, you can leave a like, leave a dislike if you didn't like it. And if you want to support me even more and you're planning on buying anything from SVBony, link on the description, or Amazon, High Point Scientific, Agena, Astra, etc. If you do so after clicking one of the links that I have down in the description, it will help me out at no cost to you. And if you want to sponsor the channel directly, make all of this work directly possible, you can become a Patreon member. The link is down in the description, or a channel member. It's the join button next to the subscribe button. And my Patreon supporters and channel members, you guys rock, you know it. You make all of this possible. Thank you, as always. And I really mean it. Thank you so much for your support. With that, I hope this was interesting. Thank you so much for watching till the end. And don't forget, whenever you can, to look up at the stars. And I'll see you next time.